I was 3 sips into my lukewarm breakroom coffee when Sarah from HR poked her frosted blonde head in and said, "Dana, can we chat real quick?" That phrase, real quick, is corporate code for we're about to gut you like a trout and smile while we do it. So I followed her down the hall, past the same interns I trained last summer, past the server room I personally debugged during the great crash of 21, into that sterile little meeting cave where dreams go to flatline. 2 suits were already waiting. Sarah perched like a crow on the corner of the table. Tom from finance wouldn't meet my eye, and I knew something wasn't just off. It was about to be surgically removed. "Dana," Sarah said, tone dripping with faux sympathy, "the company's been doing some soul-searching, and due to restructuring and cost optimization, your role is being sunsetted." Sunsetted? Like I'm a damn cruise, I nodded once. "Okay." Sarah blinked. She wasn't expecting calm. Most people panic, cry, plead for options, not me. I've been in this building for 15 years. I've seen 6 CEOs, 4 rebrands, and 2 stock crashes. I've survived vending machine mold, Floor 2's mystery leak, and Gary from procurement. I've written the damn vendor matrix they still use to onboard contractors. I've watched half of my code be bastardized by so-called agile consultants wearing all birds and ego. But then came the real gut punch. Tom cleared his throat. "There's one alternative if you're interested. We're creating a hybrid support role on facilities staff. It would be part-time, but it keeps you on the team, primarily janitorial duties, restocking, maybe light custodial work." My brain flatlined. For a second, I thought he'd said it wrong. "Offering me a mop?" I asked, voice low. Well, Sarah laughed too brightly, "Not just a mop. It's a transitional opportunity. We think of it as cross-functional synergy." I could hear something snap inside me, not loud, not dramatic, just final, like a zipper sealing a body bag. I smiled, and that smile scared them more than any yelling ever could. "Appreciate the offer," I said, rising, "but I think I'll go explore other kinds of synergy." And I walked out. No screaming, no tears, just a silent detonation deep under the skin. 15 years of loyalty filed under other expenses and swept into HR's digital trash bin. They were already sending the email to deactivate my system access before the elevator hit the lobby. I got home, kicked off my flats, and poured the last of the boxed wine. My inbox pinged. Probably spam, I figured. But it wasn't. Subject line, "Still interested in consulting?" I stared at it. It was from Blake, some old contact I'd met years ago at a vendor summit in Denver. He'd mentioned a side firm doing strategic acquisitions, asked if I ever wanted to pick up contract work. I'd ignored it at the time, but tonight, I clicked it open. "Before I tell you what happened next, do me a small favor. I'm trying to hit my first 10,000 subscribers, and I promise every story after this only gets wilder. Hit that button if you haven't already. Help a girl out. It's free and full of corporate karma." Now where were we? Yes. I typed back one line, "Let's talk." Blake's email was simple. Just 2 sentences and a digital business card from a firm I'd never heard of called Marlowe Strategic Holdings. "Hope you're well, Dana. Let me know if you're open to part-time advisory work. We're doing diligence on a few tech ops plays and could use someone who actually knows what the hell they're looking at." It was 4 months ago. I never responded. Too busy duct taping legacy software for the ungrateful parasites at Devlin Group Inc., my former employer and current garbage fire in disguise. Now I sat in my living room, sweatpants on, wine gone, rage simmering under a dead calm like a house fire behind frosted glass. I clicked reply. Still open. What kind of work? I hit send. Didn't reread. Didn't second guess, because the version of me that got offered a janitorial gig was dead. And the one typing now? She was fluent in bloodless revenge. 12 hours later, Blake called. Voice just as chill as I remembered, the kind that makes you picture a guy who owns too many watches and never uses a coaster. "We've got an opportunity," he said. "Ever heard of Bannon Holdings?" I laughed. "Only every time I had to do emergency reporting for them." "That's Devlin's parent." Silence on the line for a beat. "Wait," he said slowly. "You worked for Devlin? For 15 years, Jesus. We're about to start due diligence on them. I had no idea. Neither did they." He chuckled. "You want in?" "Yes," I said. "Send the NDA." The doc landed 10 minutes later. Tight, aggressive, ironclad. I skimmed, signed, and sent it back so fast I barely noticed the grin that had started crawling across my face. They wanted vendor risk. I was the vendor system. Wanted legal flags. I wrote half the contracts still gathering dust in their SharePoint graveyard. They wanted someone who knew how to dig through a company's soul with a scalpel and find the tumor. I had built the damn tumor. We met over Zoom the next day. Their due diligence folder was thin, too thin, some PDFs. Sloppy org charts, list of major clients and known system dependencies that read like it was made by someone trying to bluff their way through a third-round interview. I asked one question: who's your lead on systems architecture? Blake raised an eyebrow. Technically, you. If you say yes, I said yes. And just like that, I wasn't unemployed. I was embedded. No badge, no desk, no swag mug or pizza Friday. But I had something better: access. Purpose. A company full of smug bastards who still didn't know what had just stepped onto the battlefield. Now, let's talk about the clause I buried in the vendor agreement back in 2017. The one that's about to make somebody's M and a department cry. Blake's team dumped the files into a shared drive labeled Devlin DUE Diligence Phase 1. It was a digital landfill of half-baked reports, expired audit trails, spreadsheets written by people who clearly thought conditional formatting was sorcery. I opened one folder labeled IT Infrastructure Overview and actually laughed out loud. They'd included a system diagram that hadn't been updated since before COVID. The cloud architecture was still referencing servers we decommissioned in 2019 and listed under security protocol owners. My name, Dana M. Tilden, still there, still spelled wrong. Still binding. Deeper I dug, the worse it got. The firm had no idea what kind of spaghetti mess they were walking into. No current software audit. No clear understanding of the third-party plugins duct-taped into mission-critical systems. They didn't even realize the customer support dashboard was running off a deprecated API that had been flagged in a vendor alert 18 months ago. Devlin never paid for the patch. Just rerouted traffic and hoped nobody noticed. Those contracts? I opened a PDF titled Vendor Exclusive Master Agreement 2017 and felt a chill ripple up my spine. Page 4, Section B, Clause 7.3. I'd written it. Hell, I fought for it during a screaming match in legal's glass box office when some hotshot exec wanted to cut corners and skip exclusivity language. In the event of acquisition or asset transfer, all associated vendor rights become immediately non-transferable unless renegotiated under original pricing conditions and mutual consent. Translation: if Devlin tried to sell itself, every one of their exclusive contracts would go up in legal flames unless they got explicit, written approval at the original rates, which were laughably low by today's standards. I highlighted the clause, dropped a comment: potential acquisition blocker, urgent flag. I opened a fresh Lucidchart doc and started drawing. I mapped out every system I ever touched, every integration, every undocumented failover, every stupid shortcut we were forced to take when some exec wanted agile optimization without a budget. The blueprint of Devlin's digital intestines came pouring out of me like bile. By the time I was done, I'd built a war map so detailed I could practically see where the rot would spread first. Payment processing, vulnerable, inventory sync, threadbare, customer data compliance. You don't want to know. I labeled each system with its dependency score, maintenance lag, and the last known audit, most of which were never completed. And at the bottom corner, I dropped in a note: 90% of the stack is still running off platforms I architected personally. No upgrades, no redundancy. You own them, you own their failures. I sat back and stared at the screen. Not with pride, not even with bitterness. Just a strange, clear satisfaction. Like finally diagnosing the disease that almost killed you, because I wasn't documenting a company anymore. I was digging a grave. That night, I got a Slack ping from Blake. Holy shit. This map is gold. Nah, Blake, it's not gold, it's gasoline. 2 nights later, I logged into Devlin's internal vendor portal out of sheer morbid curiosity and nearly dropped my tea. I was still in. Not admin level, full permissions, but enough. Apparently someone in IT had left my consultant profile active, probably flagged it for removal in the next quarterly sweep, HR's version of spring cleaning. But for now, I was a ghost in the system. No alarms, no blocked credentials. Just quiet access to a dusty corner of a company that still thought I was gone. I didn't hack anything, didn't spoof, didn't bypass security. I clicked the same link I'd used for 3 years, entered the same credentials, and boom, there I was. Dana M. Tilden, Strategic Operations Liaison, with a consultant tag still dangling off my digital name badge like a toe tag on a corpse. I clicked Vendor Archive, waited, clicked Master Contracts, waited again. And there it was, a master vendor list, last updated 6 weeks ago. The PDF opened in slow motion, the weight of it settling across my shoulders like an old coat I never should have taken off. Pages and pages of contracts, addendums, clause stacks. Names I hadn't seen in years, third-party logistics, customer behavior analytics, a sleep-deprived startup we onboarded in 2020 that was probably still running on cold brew and hope. And on page 19, there it was. Clause 14b, buried like a landmine under 7 layers of boilerplate. In the event of corporate ownership transfer, client exclusivity and service provision shall be considered null and void unless renegotiated with original signatory terms under a certified continuity agreement. I remembered writing that clause with my blood. I remembered legal telling me it was too aggressive. I remembered winning. And now, that clause was still binding. Dozens of contracts, entire infrastructure pipelines, all tied to a tiny paragraph that could unravel them in a sale, because you can't sell what no longer legally exists post-acquisition. I downloaded the file, legally, through my still-active profile and closed the window. I logged out, cleared the history, shredded the device ID. I wasn't breaking in. I was taking inventory of what I already built. Back on the Zoom with Blake's team, I dropped the file into our secure channel and typed one sentence: "They can't sell what they can't transfer." No one responded for a full minute. Blake added a red flag tag and forwarded it to legal. I sat in the dark, letting it settle. They thought they deleted me. Turns out they just archived me and forgot I still had the keys. Not bad for janitor, huh? The cafe smelled like scorched espresso and startups. You know, the kind, half-assembled furniture, acoustic indie covers of songs that used to mean something, and tables full of people pretending Slack is a personality. I was at the corner one, laptop open, sipping a drink that had the audacity to cost $9 but still tasted like guilt and almonds. Blake was across from me, tapping away on his Mac like he was defusing a bomb. 2 junior analysts beside us whispered over financial models like kids cramming for finals. We were finalizing the package, the one that would land like a sledgehammer on Devlin's boardroom table. It was tight, brutal, beautiful. Then my phone buzzed. LinkedIn notification. Brian Keller has posted an update. Brian Keller, Devlin's CEO, human LinkedIn post come to life. A man whose only talent was surviving long enough to climb the ladder and convincing other people he'd built it. I clicked it out of habit. And there it was, in all its corporate gaslighting glory. Leadership isn't about popularity, it's about vision. Tough decisions pave the way for leaner, stronger futures. Out of the resilience our team is showing during this season of transformation. Attached, a photo of him smiling in front of a glass wall, sleeves rolled, arms crossed, looking like a rejected stock photo of thoughtful executive. Hashtag to hell. #leadership, #resilience, #transformation Tuesday. I almost choked on my overpriced latte. "Hey Blake," I said, tilting my screen toward him. "Know how they're trying to pitch themselves as a streamlined operation?" "Yeah. Well, their fearless leader here has a history of deferring IT audits to save costs. At least 2 years' worth. He also delayed every major license renewal last year and rolled it into emergency spend." Blake blinked. "You're sure?" I was the one yelling about it. He was the one ignoring the reports. He motioned to one of the analysts. "Flag that. System risk." Add a supplemental note about audit lapses. They both started typing like they were on fire. I kept scrolling. Brian's post had racked up 400 likes, mostly from industry bootlickers and former interns hoping to climb a ladder he'd probably rip out from under them. Someone had commented, "Inspiring." Another said, "True leadership." And me, I laughed. Quiet, sharp, surgical, because I knew what was coming. Brian thought he was riding the storm, didn't realize the storm was already inside the building, wearing his old consultant badge and smiling like the devil sipping decaf. It wasn't just schadenfreude anymore. It was precision. Every sentence he published became another breadcrumb, another data point we could fold into our acquisition risk report. His vanity was our crowbar. His vision was a liability. The knife wasn't just being sharpened. It was already pressed to the bone. And the best part, handed it to me himself. It started with a text from Ellie in compliance. "Are you okay?" No context. No follow-up, just that. Like I'd been in a car crash, not a cost-cutting spreadsheet massacre. Then came another from Marcia in vendor ops. They're freaking out. Keller just pulled us into an all-hands and said something vague about fortifying legal exposure. Half the team thinks we're getting acquired. Other half thinks layoffs round 2. No one's sleeping. Then Scott, the one I used to share vending machine rants with, sent a message that actually made me laugh out loud in the middle of a meeting. Whatever's happening, it smells like your kind of chaos. If you're involved, blink twice. I didn't blink, didn't reply, didn't give them what they were really asking, is this you're doing? Because I wasn't doing anything to them. They were just standing too close to the match when the fuse finally caught. That same afternoon, email hit my inbox. Subject, reconnecting from Sarah Holtz, HR, like a bad sequel nobody asked for. Hi Dana, hope you're well. I wanted to touch base and see if you'd consider returning in a short-term advisory role. We're reevaluating a few systems, and your historical knowledge could be invaluable to the leadership team as we explore some organizational pivots. Organizational pivots. God, they couldn't help themselves. No apology, no ownership. Just a cloying attempt to staple a parachute to the back of a plane already nosediving into a canyon. I read it 3 times, then archived it. No response. No click. Just a cold little tombstone in my Gmail marked HR Desperation, Vol 2. I knew what was happening behind those glass walls. Whispers in the break room. Sudden closed-door meetings. Mid-level managers refreshing the Slack directory to see who disappears next. Rumor mill had gone feral. Some were guessing bankruptcy. Others guessed regulatory trouble. A few even suspected sabotage, which was delicious in its own way. Nobody suspected me, because nobody at Devlin had ever really seen me. They saw Dana from Ops, the one who always fixed things, who never made a fuss, who bled overtime into weekends without raising her voice. They never saw the full system, the pressure points, the faults, the trapdoors I'd memorized like my own fingerprint. They thought I left quietly. They didn't realize I left loaded. And now, every nervous glance over shoulder, every hushed Slack thread marked private, every icy ping from legal, it was a ghost they couldn't name. I wasn't coming back, not to consult, not to fix, not to mop. I was already where I needed to be, and the foundation they'd built on my work, it had just started to crack. At 9:12 a.m., email was sent. Subject, Devlin Acquisition Package Final Risk Summary plus red flags. It went to a curated list of legal and executive contacts inside Devlin's parent company. And buried in the attached PDF on page 17, bolded, annotated, and hyperlinked, was the fuse. Clause 14b, non-transferable vendor exclusivity agreements. Language written by yours truly in 2017, now elevated from ignored fine print to full-on financial guillotine. I watched it land in real time. You could feel the detonation through the silence. At 9:31, I saw the first ping on our internal Slack. Heads up, Devlin's general counsel just requested a full red line review. At 9:42, emergency legal meeting added to their internal calendar. No subject line. By 10:15, Arlo's senior partner got a reply email requesting a direct line of contact with someone familiar with legacy vendor architecture. Blake messaged me one word, "You in?" I said yes. An hour later, I was sitting in a secure video room, hair pulled back, glasses on, a neutral expression carefully layered over the satisfaction burning beneath it. They didn't know I'd be attending. Not until I appeared, muted, in the corner box of the screen, labeled only strategic advisor. The meeting opened with formalities, soft voices, everyone pretending this wasn't a gunfight. Devlin's lawyers looked freshly panicked. Eyes darting. One of them was the same associate who once told me my clause wasn't enforceable at scale. He looked like he hadn't slept in 3 days. Then Marlowe's legal lead calmly walked them through the document, identified a significant impediment to transferability under existing contractual obligations. Specifically, Clause 14b of multiple vendor agreements outlines a non-transfer clause in the event of ownership change. Someone on Devlin's side interrupted. We've never had a problem with that clause before. Blake leaned in, voice smooth like black ice. That's because no one's tried to buy you before. The lawyer flipped to the next slide, displayed a highlighted version of the clause, my clause, along with a column titled, Contracts at Risk, 47. Renegotiating at original rates is non-viable. Service interruption is likely. Client retention is at risk. We're currently classifying this as a Tier 1 blocker. They started to sweat. I watched as the head of legal whispered to someone off-screen. Another exec began typing furiously. A woman in the background pulled up something on a second monitor, eyes widening as she scrolled. They were trying to find a way around it, trying to unwind it, trying to fix what had already detonated. And then came the moment I'd waited for. Brian Keller's face appeared, his camera clicked on. He stared at the screen, stared at the claws, then saw me. The pause was exquisite. Recognition bloomed behind his eyes like a bruise. His jaw tightened. His voice, when it came, was controlled, but you could hear the panic in the pauses. Dana. I didn't speak, didn't smile, didn't blink. Just met his eyes through the screen. He looked down, read the clause again, saw my initials at the bottom of the contract reference. DMT, he knew. He knew exactly what I'd done and when I'd done it. And that's when he realized this wasn't due diligence. This was dissection. The boardroom was carved from glass and arrogance. A skyline view of the city they used to rule. Sunlight hit the polished table like it was trying to spotlight the guilty. I walked in with Marlowe's team, clean lines, black folders, zero small talk. Nobody introduced me. Nobody needed to. The air changed the second I stepped through the door. Brian Keller was already seated, suit tighter than I remembered, forehead shining just enough to betray the pressure. When his eyes landed on me, he froze, blinked. His brain needed a second to cross-reference the image with a file he thought was long deleted. Dana, he croaked. One of our partners spoke before I had to. This is Dana Tilden, our strategic advisor. She'll be providing system and contract-level insight for the review. Brian nodded slowly. The kind of nod that happens when your life flashes before your eyes, and the only thing looking back is every shortcut you ever took. He didn't speak to me again. Not directly, but he tried. 2 hours in, after Marlowe's counsel dissected clause after clause, each one like a shovel of dirt over Devlin's valuation, Brian asked for a sidebar. I'd like to speak with Dana privately, he said, voice low, palms pressed together like a preacher asking for rain. Blake looked at me. I shook my head once. No, not angry, not smug. Just done. The meeting resumed. They fought to salvage leverage, tried to insist on value. I had to downplay the exclusivity clauses, the license gaps, the audit lapses. But every time they reached for ground, we pulled the rug a little further. And I didn't have to say a word, because they were choking on my silence. By the 4th hour, Devlin's lawyers looked ready to walk into traffic. Brian wasn't speaking anymore. He was staring down at the table like maybe, if he looked hard enough, a better past would appear. The acquisition didn't fall through. It didn't go the way they dreamed. Renegotiated terms, massive valuation cuts, no retention bonuses, no title guarantees, just a leaner, tighter asset purchase stripped of the bluster. And me? I stood at the window when it was done. Looked out at the same skyline I used to see from the floor they kicked me off of. Back then, they offered me $500 and a mop, said I could still be part of the team. Now, they couldn't afford me, even know how to speak to me. I didn't give a speech, didn't wink, didn't monologue. I just gathered my things, nodded to the room, and walked out. But in my head, I wrote one final line on the chalkboard of this whole miserable, glorious mess. 3 days ago, I was worth $500 and a mop. Today, I'm here to clean house, just not the way they hoped. Big thanks, you legends of the old office days. Subscribe to keep the switch-flicking chaos alive. Your ex-boss is shaking in their loafers.